time, we'll go ahead and adjourn to the West Patterson Financing Authority. And we'll go ahead and ask for a roll call, and since there's one item, and this is a conflict item for Member Beener, we'll go ahead and excuse him before we continue.
Member Lustgarten?
Here.
Member Novelli?
Here.
Member Farina?
Here.
Chair Molina?
Here. Okay, it's a presentation of West Ridge Business Park Community Facilities District 2005-1. Mr. Hallowell, good evening.
Before we get started, can I just ask one question real quick? Just for the public's knowledge. Let me see where I had that. For the public's knowledge, why is it appropriate for this to have been agendized when Mr. Hallowell is representing the parties who are suing the city? This is an active litigation, and we are basically providing them with a public opportunity to make their case.
I'm not representing the parties in the lawsuit.
Actually, I wanted our city attorney to answer that question for the public, that's all.
Okay, sure.
So the properties in question are members of the CFD. And as members of the CFD, they have the right to make requests to the board of the CFD. And so this is brought under their ability as members, both currently and prior to the acquisition of the Amazon project by USAA. And so it's based off of that. They have standing under that basis to request to have you all consider proposals.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Hallowell.
Sorry, I had to get some order. Good evening. Thank you very much. Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Joe Hallowell, 1412 Rockhaven Drive, Modesto. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you and have a discussion tonight. I'm not here to talk about the lawsuit. It was mentioned. That's something that's ongoing. There's two sides to every story, and that will get figured out. So I'm not here to address that. What I am here to address is the CFD and the West Patterson Financing Authority governing documents. The documents that the governing authority have to go by. No one here that's sitting in this room, really, except me, was around during this time. There's a few people, not many, but there's no one here that approved any of this stuff. There's no one here that set this up. There's none of you sitting in those seats that created this mess. You are left to deal with it, and you are left to clean it up. And in doing that, you have certain rules and regulations that you have to follow, as in any society. These weren't put in place by you, but these documents are documents that you do have to interpret and do have to abide by. Just to give you a little history, January 9th, 2003, the business park was approved by the current city council at that time. It was a big day for us in Patterson. We were over in the library, and it was a pretty exciting day, and the community was very excited, and they should be, and it's turned out to be basically the gem of Stanislaus County in the few years that it's been up and running. We've had tremendous unemployment in this county and in this city, and within a few years, we attracted several businesses on our way to attract even more businesses. So the forethought of what we tried to do at the time has been absolutely successful. And it's something that we as a community should be proud on. We're building on that, and it will continue to be I think, a blessing and a success, and hopefully carry us even further to help our unemployment, to help our general fund, and to create a better way of life for everybody in this community. In 2005, we established CFD 2005-1, hence the name. It was put in place to pay for infrastructure for the business park. It's been discussed many times that our fees are low or too low out here. Part of the misconception about that whole thing is that we have two pots that we pull money for to pay for infrastructure improvements. We have a fee paid at building permit, and we have a tax that is ongoing, that lasts for 30 years, that we use to sell bonds. When you add those two together, they create a large amount of funds that pay for the infrastructure requirements. In 2006, the city completed a CFD traffic study. The study was done just for the business part. In 2006, 2007, our city manager at the time, Cleve Morris, to update the governing documents, prepared a memo to Paul Timming, our bond counsel, and it described the projects listed on the report that will be placed in the governing document going forward. I'm going to give these to Mary Sella so she can hand those out. Those governing documents were sent to Mr. Paul Timming, the counsel who helped establish and sell bonds, and to Mr. Mark Pressman with Wolf Hansen, the city's investment banker. The projects described for the business park CFD included sewer, water, internal roads, including curb, gutter, sidewalk, and it also listed various mitigation measures from the intersections and what was listed in the EIR for the West Patterson Business Park. In addition to that, he listed a amount of $20 million. $6 million were to go to sewer, $3 million to water, and $11 million to traffic or road improvements. 55% of the money allocated through this CFD, which the money for the $20 million was designed based on the current rate at the time for the CFD. And for example, we just did one for the business park, which was roughly just not many more acres at $3,000 an acre, and it produced $35 million in CFD money. So this is in the ballpark. But it established money for traffic and money for water and money for sewer. That was in 2007. At that point in time, Mr. Morris then came back and we had CVS, which was Long's at the time, and Kohl's that prepaid their CFD money to the tune of over $3 million into the 2005 CFD. That money was then used to pay for road improvements. Even though the DA at the time, which was the Keystone DA, talked about a priority being water and sewer. But it also talked about the governing documents and listed the governing documents. By doing that, and the decision the city made was that they put road improvements as a priority right then and there versus the water and sewer. Doesn't mean the water and sewer will not get financed by the CFD, because they will. It's just a matter of timing. What's done first? The city prioritized the road improvements. The money was then used prior to Westridge Business Park even filing an application to put in Park Center Drive and road improvements to Rogers Road.
Mr. Hallowell, if I could just let you have a pointer, and do you have one up there? And maybe as you're speaking, maybe you could be pointing out Kohl's and CVS and the roads, and I don't know if that would help for public consumption or for the...
So this was the road that was built right here.
Give you a nice purple one there.
Thanks. So the road, the improvements that were done were improvements, small amount of improvements here, and the improvements currently down Park Center Drive connecting out to Sperry. This was done prior to an application even being made for Westridge Business Park. The CFD, I want to give you guys a budget so you can kind of see what's kind of in there. The CFD is restricted funds. It can only be used for the improvements that are listed in the governing documents of the CFD. Those governing documents list basically water improvements, sewer improvements, and road improvements. They are restricted funds. This document that is being passed out to you currently, when you'll see it, this was given to me by the city, and it was the budget as of 11/26/2013. But it shows the history from 2004, 2005 to basically 2013. And it basically tells you, it shows you in 2005, 2006, you'll see revenue, and then you'll see Kohl's CVS, $3,053,862. That was the prepayment of the CFD funds by those facilities. The money you see going down in the expense column, you'll see 1,402,965, 167, 57. Those were the traffic improvements that were used to complete water line and road improvements that were done to serve CVS, which was Long's, and Kohl's. That was the sole reason this road was put in. This property had not even made application to the city to be approved. Currently, and this is just an estimate, after your tax payments, your CFD taxes are paid by your tax bill in December and April of the year. The CFD is currently collecting over $480,000 annually. So currently, minus any expenses, and I don't know what the most recent expenses are, there's approximately $3.1 million in the CFD fund. Again, those are restricted funds that can be used for authorized uses. The document that I really wanted to discuss tonight is your West Patterson Financing Authority, which is Exhibit A of the report that I gave you, because I think that is just an important document to understand the whole process of the CFD. This report has been completed starting in 2006. So each year, 2006, 07, 07, 08, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have copies of each one going back from the beginning. The city obviously has copies. These are reports prepared by the city, prepared for the city by the city's CFD consultant, Godwin Consulting Group. They are pretty much recognized as an expert in the field and do a really good job. The report, the most recent one, shows that there are 15 parcels being taxed The city is currently collecting over $480,000 annually in tax revenue. The city has not sold bonds at this time. At some point in time, the city, the West Patterson Financing Authority can elect to sell bonds, and that money will be used to pay for the impacts and the projects that are listed in the authorities, the report of the projects that are authorized. There are currently no delinquent taxes. It talks about there was a successful election November 1st, 2005, authorized up to $45 million in bonds. To date, no bonds have been issued. Keep thumbing through the report. It just talks about the land, the tax rate. The tax rate's currently $3,331. Authorized facilities listed on page 7. To date, bonds have not been issued. The revenues generated from special taxes levied in 13-14 will be used to directly fund improvements for the CFD. A list and description of the facilities authorized to be financed by the CFD is shown in Appendix C of the report. So I ask you to come forward to Appendix C. As the West Patterson Financing Authority, which you are and you're currently in, this description of facilities just specifically describes facilities to be financed by CFD 2005-1, the district. Reading the next sentence, it says, it is intended. Definition of intended: planned, studied, intentional, done on purpose, premeditated, pre-planned, preconceived. It is intended that the district will finance all or a portion of the cost of the following. It does not say may, it does not say might, it does not say maybe. I know when we were doing the general plan, I came before the various bodies because we kept discussing policy in the general plan, and we kept bringing back words shall and words will, and I kept asking the powers to be, are we sure we want to have these words in there, because these are authoritative words. They don't give you much wiggle room. They bind you. They tie your hands. Maybe the city wants to put may in here so they have some options. The authority and the documents that were set up by prior staff, nobody in this council, you guys got to deal with it, and I hate that for you, but we are here and we're going to plow through this. It requires the district to finance all or a portion of the following: wastewater treatment plant, water transmission, roads within and in the vicinity of the West Patterson Business Park. Because that was listed in here, the city at the time decided, because 55% of the funds that it had set up at the $20 million, roads were a priority. This road right here, this road over here, for that building right there, and that Coles building right there. In fact, there's been a history of roads being financed in the city of Patterson. Baldwin Road was financed by the city of Patterson. Sperry Avenue was financed by the county of Stanislaus through PFF fees that were collected. And guess what? Those are paying back tremendous dividends. The county and the city are currently sharing in revenue from Amazon. I know we would like to have all that revenue, but currently I know we're sharing it with the county. My point is the document is very specific. It doesn't give much wiggle room. It binds you guys, and it puts you in a situation where there are improvements that will be financed. The city made its own determination that Park Center Drive, per the document, was and is a road to be financed by the CFD under its current tax rate. When they put money into this, they didn't raise the tax rate on anybody else. They kept the tax rate the same. If they thought this was going to raise the tax rate, they would have raised the tax rate. They haven't. The tax rates have raised since the beginning. They are increased based on a factor that's described in the report. Just want to quickly go over a couple of other notable items that I just want to mention to you. I gave you a report. Hopefully everybody read it. But I just want to highlight a couple notable facts. There is no cost to the general fund for the City of Patterson. 2005-1 funds are currently available to refund Park Center Drive payment made by Westside and Shalley. Could you mind, please? I'm trying to. It's a little disturbing that you're right there. I'm sorry. No cost to the City of Patterson's general fund. This is not a general fund item. It's a CFD item. The money is in the CFD. It is not a general fund item. City of Patterson previously set precedent in funding Rogers Road and Park Center Drive improvements with CFD funds, which were allowed to be built with CFD funds. They were on the list. It was an item to be financed, intended to, that will be financed. The City of Patterson used CFD funds to construct Park Center Drive and Rogers Road prior to Westside Westridge Business Park making an application for approval to the City of Patterson to help this building and that building right there. Westridge Business Park is currently in the 2005 CFD and is paying current CFD tax rates. The CFD report states, again, that the authority, which is the West Patterson Financing Authority, will finance all or a portion of roads within and in the vicinity. I'm just reading directly from the report. So my basic point is that we find ourselves in this situation that none of us here really created, but we all tried and have followed the rules for the most part. The rules of the CFD say that Park Center Drive is a road that is to be and will be financed. The city made that determination and used CFD money to finance that road. They followed the rules. That's exactly what the report said. The problem we have is that this was put in under the current rate, and we're paying the CFD rate, our tax, and we had to pay back the CFD and pay the tax. Even though this was an item that per the West Patterson Financing Authority's document says will be financed through the CFD. It doesn't say it may, it doesn't say it might, and it doesn't say, oh, maybe. It says it will. So under the authority of this document and the mess that others have created, none of you, we're asking, and our request is simple, that the West Patterson Financing Authority direct staff to refund the funds paid for the road that per the CFD governing documents, the authority is required, it's not a maybe, is required to finance by the CFD's current tax rate. The documents are very clear. We can read them all day long, but the documents are what the documents are. when we get in disputes or when we get into conflict, I've always said, let's go back and read the documents. What do the documents say? Because that's the only thing we have in our history to go by. It's nothing you guys have created, but it is a document you have to live by, because it is the authorizing documents that you have to go by. Maybe you'll change them in the future. I'm sure that might be an option. But right now, this is what we have. And I love this community. I know the people I work with love this community because they've been here for generations. And we're doing good things in this community. We see it. I see it with new things coming, and we're healthy. We're getting better. Our unemployment's coming down. We're becoming more diverse. We're creating more opportunity. I think the future is very bright for the city of Patterson. I look forward to working with everyone here and the city staff. I think we have a wonderful staff and a wonderful group to work with, and we're fortunate. We're very fortunate here. Unfortunately, we have to come to you with this request. And in doing so, it will help us all move on so that we can focus on what's important in this community, which is bringing jobs, creating a better quality of life for everybody, creating more opportunities for people, more parks, more everything. We have a lot to accomplish. We've done a good job, and we're going to continue to do a good job. In closing, I appreciate your time, and I understand this isn't easy, and this isn't, maybe it's not even fun, but I've been here from the beginning of all this, and it's not many people who can say that. And I go back to the documents, and as you go through this, all I want you to understand is you got to read the documents, because that is what binds you. You're limited, unfortunately. So I made my request, and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything else.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hallowell from council? Okay, any member of the audience wishing to comment on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back. This is not an action item for the financing authority. Is there additional information that needs to be brought back for any of the board members?
So we would be underfunding our water, sewer, and storm drainage by 1.4 if we did this.
So just so this doesn't look weird to the audience, because there is litigation that's pending, I'm going to be very careful with how I word things and the discussion. So it's a little bit more restricted conversation than we would ordinarily have. It is the city's position that the $1.4 million for Park Center Drive is owed pursuant to the development agreement. If you were to choose to fund the Park Center Drive through the development agreement, through the CFD, which the DA specifically says is to fund sewer, storm drainage, and water connection fees, it would take the amount that you are funding through the CFD away from those, so it would have the effect of reducing funding for water, sewer, and storm drainage by an equal amount. So if you did the whole thing, it would be $1.4 million.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the members?
I would, if it comes back, I'd like to address that.
Okay. The desire of the members? What was that? You-
So this isn't an action item, so what do we do?
No.
So we would be looking tonight for direction on whether or not you would like us to bring it back, obviously with the intention that if we're going to bring it back, that you would be voting whether or not to agree to finance Park Center Drive through the CFD. So effectively, if you're asking us to bring it back, you'd be asking us to include Park Center Drive in the CFD funding.
Okay, so I don't feel we need to bring it back.
We need to vote on this, or we need consensus, because it's not an action item?
Consensus.
Consensus. So there's one not to bring it back. About the other members? Bring it back, or no need?
I honestly feel I need a little bit more time to make that decision.
Understanding what you have said, that because there is actually a litigation going on, we have to be very careful what we say up here. And I'm inclined to agree with Councilmember Farina. It would be nice to get this solved. It would be nice to, this has been going on for quite a while, and it would be nice to get this solved. And with that said, I personally need some more time on this.
So here, we don't need to bring it back, we need more time for action or for digestion, or both? Because if I heard correctly, we're bringing
Well,
it back.
before we can act upon it, we need to digest, we need to internalize it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm asking.
So-
So you need digestion time, and that doesn't mean bringing it back, that we're going to take an action. We need more information for discussion. What I heard the attorney say, if we bring it back, it's for action one way or the other.
That would be correct. In order for us to bring it back, it would require 3 of the 4 members to support bringing it back.
And I'm understanding that Member Farina and Member Novelli at least expressed at this point more digestion time, but not necessarily bring it back for an action. I just want to be clear.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have to digest the information, so until I digest the information, I'm not able to make a decision. There was information which we received tonight on both ends, so that's information
So I
that,
just want to be clear, and council can
Right.
direct us, but I just want to make sure that,
Because once the council is able to deliberate or think about it, then if so be, then we can bring it forward to a subsequent time to, for potential action. But to automatically turn it into an action item is putting undue pressure on us.
I
So,
just want to procedurally follow
right,
this. So we don't need to bring this back unless after you have digested the new information. We, as the financing authority, we can ask that this be brought back for an action. But at this time, we're not bringing it back unless you feel after the information, 3 of the 4 members say, we want to act on this one way or the other. Is that correct?
I think what he's saying is, what you're saying is that we want to bring this back to the original state we got it brought forward tonight, not as an action item, correct?
Yeah, but I don't.
as a discussion item.
Yeah, but we
Yes.
don't need to bring it back. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm understanding that we don't need to bring it back unless we're ready to act on it.
Yeah, and the one caution I would give the board is just because of the fact that this is a matter that's subject to litigation. My conservative advice is that unless we're prepared to really take action and move it forward to allow Park Center Drive to be financed through the CFD, I wouldn't want to have, you don't want to have like 6 3, 4, 6 open sessions on a matter that's pending before litigation. I think
Would agree.
the discomfort we're all having is the fact that this is a matter of litigation, and
Right.
there's limits on what we feel comfortable
Correct.
talking about.
And that kind of brings me forward to an additional question. Are we able to discuss this in closed session, because it is, so sensitive? So are we going to be discussing this in closed session before we get to this?
Yes, you can, this is the type of item that would be appropriate, given the fact that we're in litigation, to have further discussions about in closed session.
Thank you.
I don't want to put us behind 1.4 in our water, sewer, and drainage, so I say no. Let's not bring this back.
Other members?
I've said what I need to say.
Okay.
I guess my feeling is that where do I go with if I want to say, I want the parties to sit down and try to work it out? What do I do? What do I say for that? I mean, are we beyond that point? Is there some, I mean.
So neither one of us are able to talk about any kind of discussions that we've had.
Okay.
That being said, I feel very comfortable if it's the council's desire to ask us to mediate this dispute. I don't feel uncomfortable having you say that you would like us to mediate this dispute in open session, but I would leave it at that, and I wouldn't go into thought processes or desires or anything of that nature. Another option could be we are agendized for this closed session. We did not close closed session tonight. We could have further discussions about it tonight after closed session continues, or we could agendize it for a future item to have closed session discussions on. Again, my conservative instinct is to limit public discussion on this item from the council as much as possible, just because, I don't want you to wind up getting deposed. And I've been very transparent about, the motivations and so on. So whatever the council's desire is, we're here to, execute on the majority desire.
I think as the members, the council members, have an opportunity to discuss, I think it should be, as you said, a current closed session item and a continued closed session item, and it lessens exposure.
Okay. I would agree with that.
Okay? I think that's enough direction.
We got our direction.
Thank you, Mr. Hallowell.